Alright, you guys. Welcome to another live. Please share, subscribe, hit that like button for me, and let's get to this live. Now, we got to talk about Trump's war on the poor. Now, this is causing a nightmare in Washington, D.C. A lot of people are afraid to walk these streets at night, during the day, as President Donald Trump is the man of curfew, and he says Thursday night he will be out with the USA troops on a night where they're going to continue to harass the poor people. So let's get to it. I hope you guys share this video because it's causing a nightmare what's going on in the streets of Washington. So like I said, you guys, we got a shooting that's going on in Nashville, Tennessee. School shooting that was going on. You know what I mean? And I wanted to say something to you guys, man. Look, we in a world trouble, man. They're not trying to, in other words, they're not trying to take the crimes off the streets, you guys. They are trying to harass the poor citizen people. The homeless. Trump has, this big thing on, on how he can do his, encampment on the homeless. We gotta take the streets. We gotta move these nasty, stinking people out our streets. So he's only doing this in Washington, as he says he's gonna be out, with the US military and things like that, while we got shootings constantly going on here, in our cities. They got the mayors that's coming out, and like I said, when we look at Washington, when we see the cities of these mayors, you guys, just think about it, you guys. Where are they going to house these people? Really, where are they going to house these people? They got the city of the mayors that's out here. My question is, where are they going to house these people? Trump is getting with the U.S. militaries, and to me, Trump is taking his war out on the poor citizens. So let's get to it, you guys. Thank you guys for tuning in. Big shout out to you guys, man, for tuning in. Huge shout outs to all my viewers today, man. Now let's get to this video. First, I want to read what's coming out from the New York Times Post. And I want to keep you guys informed what's going on. Bear with me, guys. DC residents are starting to notice Trump federal agents are too scared to go near the dangerous DC neighborhoods. As Donald Trump federal takeover of the Washington D.C. police force enter its second week, police who live in the city have started to question the focus of the federal agents who are now patrolling there, where the administration has says its a goal is to address crime. Observations from the ground shows that these federal forces are mainly concentrated on high-profile areas of the nation capitals that have low crime rates. A review from Washington Post of how the agents have moved across the city shows they had very few interactions in the neighborhoods that typically experience the highest ranks of violent crimes. People in Washington have seen officers from many different federal agencies including the FBI and Department of Homeland Security, keeping a very visible presence at a famous tourist spot, particular nightlife areas. For example, military vehicles have been positioned near the ride share pickup location at Union stations, and the Department of Defense even publicized a photograph according to the New York Times. So it says outside the train station, it says federal agents have also been seen at the National Malls and the Lincoln Memorial, which are areas where violent crimes is almost non-existent. It says what these agents have been doing often involved responding to minor disturbances instead of major crimes. In one instance, federal agents were seen calling an ambulance for a highly intoxicated person. So it says, according to New York Times, it says another case confrontation between federal officers and protesters happened along a particular nightlife streets. It says this pattern of patrol is very different from a claim made by the White House that at the large part of a non-immigration related arrests have happened in the city area most affected by crimes. However, earlier, the data from the administration shows that many of the arrests involved undocumented immigrants, and federal agents have not been widely seen responding to or addressing violent crimes incidents. The action of some agents have also caused concern in a neighborhood with a large Hispanic population. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents was filmed removing a banner that showed support for immigrants from a public park. After taking down the banner, one agent was heard saying, "We taking America back, baby." The agent reportedly left an object where the banner had been. Local residents quickly put the banner back up. The president had tried to describe the capital as a city plagued by violent crimes. He had asserted without providing any evidence that the city crime data is manipulated and that crime rates are worse than they appear. In reality, violent crimes in Washington, D.C. is at a 31-year low, following a single spike in the year of 2023. The increased federal presence seemed to have changed the city atmosphere. Patrolling areas, well, I say patrolling areas where no crimes happen help no one. It's like they are more focused on posing than doing anything good now. Now I'll tell you that Trump's war on the poor people now. Now, you should be frightened of what's going on here. You know, Trump is saying that we got to take back these streets, and I highly recommend you guys, that Trump is going to do anything good. There's a shooting that's happened at the Nashville, Tennessee, school shooting that's going on right now. I don't know if they have found the shooter. So there's a lot of things going around us, and you got the Washington, DC city mayor. She came out saying that yeah, we're gonna have places for these homeless people. Here's my thing, guys. Where they gonna place these homeless people? A lot of people's fears. Washington D.C. will have a curfew as Trump. will go out on his Thursday night while he joined the military. So you guys please share this video and let's dive into it.
Officials insist efforts to combat crime are working.
All these demonstrators that you've seen out here in recent days, all of these elderly white hippies, they're not part of the city and never have been.
Attorney General Pam Bondi touting more than 550 arrests since the joint operation began almost 2 weeks ago. The U.S. Marshals Service is offering $500 rewards for information leading to an arrest in D.C. during the public safety surge.
When you walk around the streets, you'll notice a difference. And that's what President Trump was talking about when he said, we're going to clean up our streets.
It comes as federal officials are taking a new approach to law enforcement in the city, telling local prosecutors not to seek felony charges against people carrying rifles or shotguns. And the youth curfew goes into effect Thursday evening in parts of Washington. Democratic Mayor Muriel Bowser today responding to news the Justice Department opened a formal investigation into the potential tampering of D.C. crime statistics to make the city appear safer.
Oh, wait. If you were detained at any San Bernardino juvenile detention facility, such as High Desert or Gilbert Street,
will cooperate with any investigation. We know that crime has gone down in our city.
D.C. statistics, Brett, show violent crime dropped 26% last year, but many at the White House and Justice Department just don't believe it. It's unclear if there will be any federal charges stemming.
Now, if the crime dropped 20%, right? It dropped 20%, right? Why are they not in Chicago, Tennessee, Memphis, Los Angeles? Why are they in Washington, D.C.? If the crime, listen to me, if the crime dropped 20% now, they got the city mayor. You know, here's my thing, you guys. Where are they going to really house these people, man? If the crime dropped 20%. You see, they're not going into Chicago. They're not going into Memphis. They're not going into Nashville where that school shooting happened at. They're not going over there. But Washington, they want to focus on Washington. They want to demand a curfew in Washington.
From this probe, Brett.
All right, David, thank you. Mr. Vice President, thank you for having us here today.
Good to see you.
So you had quite an eventful morning over at Union Station, as we saw in that clip. Tell us about how you decided to go over there. You know, a lot of us D.C. residents and former D.C. residents know it well. It's been the site of a lot of crime in recent years.
Of course.
And you decided to pay a visit. What happened?
Well, so a couple things. So first of all, I had heard from a couple of friends who used to avoid Union Station because there were vagrants and there were crazy people screaming at kids that they avoided Union Station. But over the past 9 days, since the president did this emergency order, it looks a lot better, feels a lot safer. So I was talking with Stephen Miller and with Pete Hegseth about this in the Oval Office yesterday, and I was like, you know, we should just go over there and say hello to people. And you've got a lot of National Guardsmen over there, some DC cops who have been heckled by some of the protesters. So I thought, what a good show of moral support to have the vice president, some of the senior team at the White House show up. We bought him some burgers, hang out with him a little bit. And actually, the most interesting thing, Laura, was after the cameras left, Pete and Steve and I stayed and, you know, had lunch with these troops and just learned a lot about what they're seeing, about how much the city has changed in just the past 9 days. So crazy statistic, violent crime has dropped in DC 35% in 9 days. Robberies in DC have dropped 55% in 9 days. And it highlights the fact that this living with lawlessness and disorder, that's fundamentally a question of political will. If you've got the political will to enforce the law, you can make even cities like DC safe again, and that's what we're demonstrating. And I hope that the American people take an important lesson from this, because obviously DC is a federal city, New York, LA, these places are not. I hope the American people just recognize that you don't have to live with lawlessness. You don't have to live with third world murder rates. If you just take control of these cities, you can make them safe places to live in.
So you're...
Look, you guys, please, I want you guys to think and use your discernment, man. I won't be surprised that America is the number one high crimes, you guys. You mean to tell me that DC have 20%, you know, and all these other major cities is, you know what I mean, is sitting at a high crime rate? We got to fix our streets, man. The mayor's got to come into the city and see what's going on and reach out, because why is it that we looking at Washington D.C. and they have a low crime rate, you know, and Trump is coming out, he's getting together with the military, and they demand curfews in Washington D.C. So, you know, what we got to focus on, the school shootings, the shootings that's happening over there in Nashville and Memphis, Chicago, Los Angeles, and all those other states, you guys. You know, like I said, guys, please, I want you guys to use your discernment and just, you know, look at things and measure them out, because look, you guys, a lot of people are frightened, man. A lot of people are scared. So, like I said, you guys, use your discernment, please. And, you know, if you ain't got to go out, don't go out, man.
How Gavin Newsom calls this an abuse of power, that this is just a power grab, and this is all stunt for show, and that you all are going to roll through other cities. You've heard things, oh, martial law is going to be declared. Into that, you said?
Well, first of all, how is it a power grab, or how is it a stunt when we've already declined murders by 35% in 9 days? How many people are living and breathing today because Donald Trump had the willpower to say, you know what, we're sick of D.C. being a home to lawlessness. We're going to bring some public order back to the nation's capital. So what I would say to Gavin Newsom or to anybody else in some of these big blue states or big blue cities is, you can have law and order, you can have common decency, you can have public spaces that young families can go to again. I'll tell you a story, Laura. A couple of years ago, the last time I was in Union Station, I took my little kids there to get lunch, and they were being screamed at by homeless people. Not compassionate to the homeless people to let them just fester when they clearly have mental health problems. Not compassionate to young families to not be able to go into one of America's great public spaces without being screamed at by a person clearly suffering.
Why are Democrats
from a mental
doing
illness.
this?
I don't know.
Why is this
I
a
don't
political
know.
strategy?
Laura, I have thought about this so often and so many times. I don't know why Democrats seem to love public disorder and chaos almost as a political ideology. And I think that part of what's going on is Democrats have gotten so divorced from the communities that they allegedly serve that they don't realize the gross majority of residents in D.C., they want to walk through Union Station and just have a bite to eat or enjoy the space with their families. They don't realize that so many people have been absolutely terrorized by Democrat crime policies, and so maybe they just don't make the connection between what Gavin Newsom says and the fact that places like D.C. or Los Angeles have some of the highest murder rates in the world.
And the D.C. police are being investigated for potentially manipulating their crime data. I've heard this from other police forces across the country. Great cops, beat cops, places like Chicago have said, oh, some of the crimes are reclassified to make a burglary something that's more of a disturbance, and that kind of stuff happens. But is this a federal issue at this point, if this is a manipulation of data and if it's widespread?
Well, it's certainly something that's being investigated, and I hope that we'll uncover what's going on. But even aside from any manipulation of data,
Look, Biden opened up that border crisis, all hell broke loose. We had crime at its highest, you know, missing, kids, we still got missing kids going missing. So, yeah, it's a problem we got to fix, man. Crime haven't stopped, no matter who's running the presidency. We get Republicans or Democrats. The crime is always high in the United States, you guys. So they're not really doing anything to bring this crime down, you guys. It's almost every shooting you can go from state to state. It's not what people think it is. You know what I mean? It's like crime happened everywhere throughout the state. So it's like our problem. We gotta find a solution as a people. You know, because the thing that Trump is doing, man. You know, the people are. You know what I mean? The people are so furious. They don't even know what to do, man. In other words, they don't even know what the you know what I mean, what the next move. You know what I mean? And you know, it's like the people are scared. You know, they don't know what to do, man. A lot of a lot of these people are scared, furious. You know what I mean? I was just looking at the other day, you guys, that a lot of people are, you know, arguing about FEMA, insurance companies, you know. So there's a lot of things that people are angry, you know. Here's the thing I have, you know, a lot of people losing homes. Insurance companies not covering up their expense. So a lot of people is losing, you know what I mean, their homes, and, you know, expect to see the number increase, man. I won't be surprised if the insurance companies can't cover up the costs, you guys. You know, I know it's better getting something, anything, but you guys, we're looking at houses that's 150,000, 200,000. Those people is losing their house, you guys. You know, I always say, you guys, expect for the worst, expect for this drought, because you know this is just the tip of the iceberg. So you know, it's got a lot of people furious. Let's go.
Data, when you have 911 wait times that are so long, a lot of crime doesn't even get reported. And we heard this all the time, and people would say, well, my home's being robbed. I'm not even going to call the police because it's going to be 45 minutes before they show up. And that's not an indictment of the beat cop, by the way. They're so overwhelmed by how much violent crime there is that they're unable to actually bring public safety to these communities. So what we're doing is just changing the balance a little bit. We're putting more good guys on the streets, and we're taking more bad guys off the streets. And we think that's the sort of thing that's going to bring public safety back to DC. Again, it's already working in a very big way.
Now, on to Ukraine. Your February meeting with Zelensky and the president, that was quite something to behold. How did you all break the ice this time? Take us into the room, because we're all dying to know that.
Well, I think so President Zelensky walked into the Oval Office. I was chatting with him, with the president, with some of the senior Ukrainian delegation. I said, Mr. President, so long as you behave, I won't say anything. And he just chuckled a little bit. It was a good little icebreaker. I mean, what the president's trying to do, meaning our president is trying to do, is bring a 3.5-year very brutal conflict to a stop. It's killed way too many Ukrainians, way too many Russians. It's completely transformed the economy of Europe and of big parts of Asia. We just got to get back to peace. And I really do think you heard Vladimir Putin say this, that if Donald Trump had been president in 2022, this war would have never started. And now the president is really spending a lot of time, a lot of effort to stop Joe Biden's war, because I think it is Joe Biden's war. Without him being weak and provocative, I don't think that Russia...
Why are they still putting that is Joe Biden war? We got already a new president, Trump, in office, man. You know, we can't go back what happened 2022. You know, if Trump was in office, the war would have not stopped, you guys. The war would probably continue to escalate. Russia would probably just went on and invade their next door neighbor, man. So this is Trump war. Trump got to focus. He got to come with some strategy. You know, at this point, you guys, America's facing a turmoil. They facing a hard rock. You know what I mean? At a very hard place, man. You know what I mean? So, like I said, man, Trump, he got to come up with a strategy. He got to come up with a peace agreement. He got to figure it out. You know what I mean? because right now, you know what I mean, Trump is sitting somewhere, you know what I mean, he's right now, in other words, he's in a hard place. You know what I mean? He's facing, you know what I mean, he's facing a hard rock and a hard place right now. So, you know, you got to figure it out, man. You just got to figure this out. You know, that's all I'm going to say. You got to, as president of the United States, you got to figure it out.
Would have invaded Ukraine, and now we have a situation where a president is trying to be strong and bold and trying to bring this thing to a close.
Now, take us into the room when the president said, I'm going to call Putin now. And you got Western leaders, they've all come to Washington. Now, what was their facial expression at that point? Did they anticipate that this was going to happen? Because it was, 8 hours ahead, Moscow time?
Yeah, it was like 1 in the morning Moscow time, and they had no anticipation. So we're actually in the east wing of the White House, and the president says, you know, we've had a pretty good meeting. I'm going to go call Vladimir Putin and see what he says about it. And everybody's like, oh, you're going to call him next week? And he's like, no, what time is it in Moscow? Let's call him right now. And I think one of the things I realized about President Trump's leadership is he cuts through the BS of some of these diplomatic protocols and just says, I'm going to get things done. If I want to talk to somebody, I'm going to talk to somebody. You had a lot of the Europeans who were saying, no, there needs to be proper, vetting, and the teams have to prepare the phone call and blah, 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 blah. And the president was like, no. I want to talk to the guy. I'm going to talk to the guy. And I think that kind of no holds barred, no BS diplomacy is part of the reason why we've made the progress we have. And we've made a lot of progress, Laura. Look, who knows what's going to happen? The president tells me this all the time. You can never say with certainty what the outcome in this situation is going to be. But we now have the Russians talking to the Ukrainians. They're talking details about what would be necessary on each side to stop the fighting and stop the killing. We've made more progress in 3 months than the country had made in 3 years in stopping this conflict. And I think it's because sometimes you just need a president who will pick up the phone and call somebody.
Yeah, I'm an AI, but I'm here to talk apps. Real apps you can build in minutes with Base 44. This finance app.
When Vladimir Putin meets with Volodymyr Zelensky, can we assume that all the big details will have been discussed and generally agreed upon, namely the security agreement and land swap?
It's a good question. I think that if you go through the bureaucratic process, then the answer is yes. But I think the president's preference and my preference would be, let's have them meet regardless. You don't have to figure out every issue. And sometimes leaders sitting down face to face can break the logjam that their teams don't necessarily have the ability to do. There really are 2 big questions lingering out there. And in some ways it's very simple, but in some ways it's very complicated. Number 1 is Ukraine wants to know that it's not going to get invaded again by Russia. It wants to know that it's got territorial integrity long into the future. The Russians want certain pieces of territory, most of which they've occupied, but some of which they haven't. So that is really where the meat of the negotiation is. The Ukrainians want security guarantees. The Russians want a certain amount of territory. Again, we finally got the details. We're working on them, but we haven't figured everything out. And I don't think that we should.
Look, you guys, the Russians, they want that serving unit, man. They want a big part, in other words. And, that's the reason why we seeing the atrocities, the genocide, things like that. We've been seeing a lot of bloodshed over there in that Middle East, man. The Russians, they want a serving unit, man. And they're not going to stop, man. They're not going to stop till they get what they, want. So, here he is, that's the reason why, if you notice, these sanctions that Donald Trump is putting over there on their economy is, they still, still find ways to move around. I've been always saying this thing's bigger than what we think it is, you guys. The Russians, they want that serving union, man, and they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop till they get what they want. So here he is,
Force, we shouldn't say that they can't sit down until you've figured out every little detail. Sometimes them sitting down is what facilitates figuring out those details.
You have been so strong on the idea of Europe paying for Europe's defense.
Sure.
And I think a lot of Americans don't understand that the EU GDP last year was about $19.18 trillion, if I'm right,
Yep.
give or take. And the UK's is about 2.9 trillion.
Sure.
Ours is 29.8 trillion, right?
You know,
So
you know the numbers better than I do. You used to be Treasury Secretary.
Sorry, Scott, I got your job. Now, so this is a lot of money. Europe has the money to defend itself. So the security agreement, my question to you is, why should America carry the lion's share of the burden from now until Lord knows when for Europe when Europe has the money to defend itself?
Well, I don't think we should carry the burden here. I think that we should be helpful if it's necessary to stop the war, to stop the killing. But I think that we should expect, and the president certainly expects Europe.
The problem we have is we carry a lot of people's burdens, but we don't carry our own burdens. You know, and the sad thing is, man, you know, when America steps out their home and goes into foreign countries, discuss all the problems that the country is having, it's a shame. It's a shame to not to go home and take care of the needs of American people. I told you, man, it's like, you know, it's like when you're a father at home, the father take care of the need of the home. He works, you know what I mean? He comes home and he sees the needs of his children, his families, and he go take care of home before he do anything else. And that's the same thing with America, man. You know what I mean? Each president we have, you know what I mean, that have to take care of, you know what I mean, the hearts and needs of the American people, man. You know what I mean? We can't continue to carry each, you know what I mean, other people's burdens. We got to carry our own burdens. Our focus, we have focus and tendency to help other people. You know what I mean? Here we go give Ukraine trillions of dollars, but we don't take care of home. We go carry each other's burdens, but we don't carry our own burden. But we over here, you know what I mean, carrying the Ukraine's, you know what I mean, burdens and things like that. I mean, we haven't had no solution of stopping the war. It haven't been no solution to fix the war or to end the war. Come on, y'all. Come on, man. Come on. Let's be logic here, man. Let's think logic here, man. Here we are right here, man. Another year in past, y'all. And here we are.
To play the leading role here. And what he said very clearly is, look, the United States is open to having a conversation, but we're not going to make commitments until we figure out what's going to be necessary to stop the war in the first place. And I think that it's, you know, the president is very good. He never takes anything off the table. He never puts anything fully on the table because he doesn't want to give away his leverage. And this is the private conversation that we're all going to have about what's necessary to stop the war. But no matter what happens, no matter what form this takes, the Europeans are going to have to take the lion's share of the burden. It's their continent, it's their security, and the president's been very clear they're going to have to step up here.
What's it like meeting Putin? What was he like, just one-on-one?
So I've actually never met Putin. The president did that meeting. I've talked to him on the phone a number of times. You know, it's interesting. He's more soft-spoken than you would necessarily expect. You know, the American media has a particular image of him. He's soft-spoken in a certain way. He's very deliberate. He's very careful. And I think fundamentally he's a person who looks out for the interests as he sees it of Russia. And I think one of the reasons he respects the President of the United States is because he knows the President looks out for the interests of the American people. And while they often disagree about issues, and obviously the President has been very critical of Vladimir Putin, the President's also willing to work with anybody if he thinks it's going to accomplish an important goal for America. And we all agree an important goal is to stop the killing.
Let's move to the economy because that is still the number one issue in the United States for most voters.
Sure.
The Democrats seem to be banking on an economic downturn, just like they seem to be banking on chaos in the streets against the National Guard.
Sure.
How do you see the economy in the next 6 months as we're seeing some continuing uncertainty regarding interest rates and Jerome Powell?
Well, unfortunately, you have the Democrats. I think they really are betting against the United States. We're betting on the United States and the American people. There are a lot of good things happening in the economy. You have a lot of new investment coming in part because of the tariffs. People are trying to avoid the tariffs by building in the United States, which is their whole point, Laura, and why the president.
Look, I'm gonna tell you guys, 6 months, how I see this economy. Well, let's talk about the beautiful bill, because what's in that beautiful bill is going to affect a lot of Americans, not going to help us. So 6 months down the line, let's talk about the economy. Well, there's this Cold War between America and Russia. You know, the last time when Trump visited Vladimir Putin, Putin says that he's not willing to take no deal. So what that means that the United States of America have to settle a war with Russia. And the making, you will see a war between America and Russia. So meaning expecting high inflations, high costs of gas, the gas at $4.21. I won't be surprised. You know what I mean? We'll see gas back at $5 again, man. By next year. I won't be surprised, y'all. So 6 months, you know what I mean? Where we going to see our economy? Where things going to start unfolding. You're going to start seeing when they bring back these jobs, you guys. And a lot of people going to be like, oh, I'm gonna get ready for my tax season. I'm gonna start my exemptions. You guys, look, man, they taking already Medi-Cal, Medicare. They're taking these things off the table, y'all. 6 months going in, the economy gonna be hurt. It's gonna hurt a lot of American people. You know, people are jobless now. They are, you know, there's reports that, you know what I mean, people are losing jobs. You know what I mean? It's a massive job loss throughout the United States, nationwide, y'all. So, come on, man. I don't see 6 months from here. I don't even see the economy moving in a better direction. Now, let's be honest here. Where you see the economy going in 6 months? I'm just being honest.
The president has been right about this issue from the beginning. You see blue-collar wages rising at their fastest rate in 50, 60 years. You see inflation cooling off, that there's still a lot of work to do there. So I feel very good about where the economy is. You can never predict the future, but I think what people all over the world recognize is that it's a time to build in the United States of America. If you want to build a car, you want to build a car manufacturing facility, if you want to build a next generation technology facility, if you want to build houses, whatever you want to do, we are the place to do business.
How about rare earths and magnets, which we're dependent on with China, which gives them an enormous amount of leverage over us.
And that's something the president has really directed the entire team to fix that issue, because whether it's rare earth magnets or pharmaceuticals, he wants the United States to depend on Americans. We should not be in a situation where foreign adversaries or competitors have control over critical parts of our economy. Think about this, Laura. God forbid Americans are in some sort of conflict and we can't get antibiotics because we're in a conflict against a country that makes the antibiotics. You don't have economic freedom and you don't have real prosperity unless you make your own stuff. That's why.
Look, we are in conflict because nobody wants to bargain. Ain't nobody taking the American bluff anymore. That's why we in a mess up situation. Because to me, you know what I mean, when it comes to, you know what I mean, America's products, their trades and things like that, here's the thing we have. We're in so much conflict, you know what I mean, competition with other fortune countries, man. So when it comes to like China, you know, 80% of goods come out of China. So look, man, China is at a point like, you know, buy some of our goods. We've been buying some goods from y'all. So now when you get Trump in office, Trump is naive, man. Trump is a very arrogant person, man. You know what I mean? You know, China got these iPhones and these Apple phones, right? That's coming out of China, right? A lot of things coming out of China, right? So Trump at a point where, you know what I mean, if y'all not getting nothing from us, you know what I mean, we gonna put these tariffs on you. You know what I mean? We tired of buying goods from y'all. You know what I mean? Y'all buy us some of our trades, and this. See. This is the thing, man. This is where we at, man. This is why Trump putting 50% tariffs in China. You know what I mean? And it's not really affecting China's economy, but it's affecting us at the end of the day. Because whatever happened if we need something, if we trying to exchange something, come on, man. You putting tariffs over there in you know what I mean, in China, sanctions, you know what I mean, Iran and you know what I mean, and Russia gonna just make things, you know what I mean, escalate. So, it's not, in other words, it's not, it's not a good, it's not a good decision. You want to make ends meet, like, you know what I mean? So it's like, here we are, we in a worse situation, man. We in a situation where things is likely to escalate. So nothing to surprise you guys, man. Nothing should surprise you.
The President of the United States is making it so much easier to build things and make things in America.
Now, I know you love talking about politics because you're going to say, well, we can't look forward to 2028. I understand.
I'm sick of politics.
But Democrats are still doing their 2024 autopsy.
Yes.
Okay. And part of their autopsy is that going forward, they need to kind of be more like Trump in tone, tougher, have nicknames. Newsom's given you a nickname, which I don't even understand, called Just Dance Vance. So I guess, what's your favorite dance? What's your favorite dance music? I mean, it's the dumbest nickname. But how lost are the Democrats right now? You can answer the dance question.
I mean, look, the autopsy for the Democrats, some free political advice from the President of the United States is stop sounding like crazy people. That really is all it is. I mean, this idea that Gavin Newsom is somehow going to mimic Donald Trump's style, I think that ignores the fundamental genius of President Trump's political success, which is that he's authentic. He just is who he is. You've got to be yourself. You've actually got to talk to people honestly about the issues. I don't think it's that complicated. Don't be a crazy person. Be authentic. If the Democrats did that, they'd do a hell of a lot better. But the thing is, the Democrats really can't help themselves. If you look at the transgender issue, they're still talking about letting men play in women's sports. If you look at the crime issue, they're calling Donald Trump a fascist for taking action that in 9 days has dropped armed robberies by 55%. So part of sounding less crazy is being less crazy. And if the Democrats were less crazy, I think we'd all get along a whole lot better.
Yeah, I'm not trying to pick on California because I am a member of the California bar, so I don't get in here. But look, we've had a situation where they're giving commercial driver's licenses to illegal aliens who can't speak English.
You don't have basic English competency.
And they are killing Americans,
which
as I
matters a
saw
whole
in
lot,
Florida.
because if you're going to read a road sign, Laura, you might as well, or you need to actually read the language the road sign is written in. And of course, this illegal alien in California killed 3 innocent people because he was reckless, he was dangerous, he shouldn't have been in the country. But now we come to find out he can't even read in the language the road signs are written in. So this is, again, it goes to the Democrats' basic problem, which is they're just too crazy. Imagine if you had a Democratic Party that was focused on enhancing the prosperity and the safety of American citizens rather than bringing in millions and billions of low-wage illegal immigrants, giving them the right to vote, and allowing them to effectively make it harder for Americans to live a good life. That's all this is about. They care more about low-wage foreigners than they do about their own people. That is the fundamental craziness at the heart of the Democratic Party. And until they change that, Gavin Newsom can mimic Donald Trump all that he wants to. They're still going to lose unless they get better policies that actually serve the American people.
even the fact that they're endangering the lives and killing American citizens, as we saw with that horrific crash in Florida.
Literally killing Americans.
Literally killing Americans. I mean, these are not made up statistics. This just happened. I mean, federal highway funds, that's leverage that the federal government has over the states that refuse to do the basics.
That's
Would
exactly
you
right.
consider advising that DOT and the administration pull back on federal highway funds for these states?
So I don't want to get ahead of any administration announcements, but we are looking at a whole host of points of leverage we can exercise over California and other states to make sure they comply with the law. Sanctuary cities are killing people because you allow these violent criminals to set up shop in your cities. Obviously, you saw this case with the person who murdered people on the road, 3 people on the road, because he couldn't even read the road signs. We have a lot of points of leverage here, but fundamentally, I think the American people have to stand with us here. Because when we go and tell the governor of California or the governor of New York that you have to stop putting the interests of illegal aliens over American citizens, we need the American people to stand with us. And I think that they will, I think that they are, but we're definitely not going to let this slide.
I think the American people are so fed up, you guys. You know, we are so fed up with getting treated, you know what I mean, the way we've been treated for, you know what I mean, for history. You know what I mean? It's always history repeating itself. So, like I said, you guys, man, if it ain't nothing, it's always something. But we're gonna wrap it from here, man. Please, you know, subscribe to the channel for more updates, man. You guys, you know what I mean, subscribe and, you know, share this video. Till then, we out.